What would Buffett say caused the current financial crisis? He would say, one, the madness of crowds, the fact that derivatives became such a huge part of our underlying financial system, and it really came down to derivatives. That was the ticking time bomb, because here's how Buffett looked at it. And this is where Buffett came from on it. Buffett had bought General Re. I remember I said that he bought General Re about 20 years ago. General Re was a reinsurance company, and as part of that, they did derivative transactions. I don't even understand what they did, but they did derivative transactions. 23,000 derivative transactions were on the books at Gen Re when he bought it. He said, I don't understand these things. Let's get rid of them. Now, if Warren Buffett says he doesn't understand something, that's pretty interesting, because he can understand a lot of stuff. But what he was saying was, I don't understand these derivatives. I don't understand who all the different counterparties are. Let's get rid of them. So they started getting rid of these derivative contracts. It took them 4 or 5 years, and it cost them $400 million to do that. And when Buffett saw this happening, when he saw how hard it was to unwind these contracts and how costly they ended up being, and he was unwinding them during a very strong economic period when things were good. What Buffett said was, my gosh, if we're having this much trouble unwinding this small amount of derivatives, what's going to happen with Bear Stearns with trillions of dollars of exposure, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? And that's why he got out of the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac positions, and that's why he did not own. Give him credit. He didn't own any of those stocks that went out of business. And a lot of his followers, a lot of guys on Wall Street who try to think like him, were actually owners of companies like Citibank and Fannie Mae, because they just sort of looked at the numbers. They didn't really think about the intangibles. They didn't sit down with the CEO and look him in the eye and say, do you really understand your business the way people do with Warren Buffett? It turns out they were sitting on trillions of dollars worth of derivative exposure. And once the cycle broke, it's kind of like when the Hunt brothers had their margin call back in 1980, 81, and they had to start selling silver. That was a domino effect. People were selling silver collapsed. So guys who had silver and gold all of a sudden were selling gold because the silver was collapsing. And then the guys who owned gold and silver also owned oil, and they were selling oil and that's the same thing that happened with the derivatives. Once it started to go down, once somebody said, who do I sell this junk to? The whole market evaporated. And that really underlay the whole financial crisis, that derivatives issue.